So if you're interested in starting your own at-home freight dispatching business, in this video, I'm going to give you training for free. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure you click that link down below. Watch part 1 before watching part 2 here. So I'm going to give you my entire training for free. And then if you need help with implementation of this training, you can click the link below to take a look at my bootcamp program. So let's get right into this training. But before we do that, here's a brief customer testimonial.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to leave a quick testimonial for Antoine West's program. I wanted to just first say that it's extremely worth the investment financially to take the course. I learned a whole lot, and I'm still learning a whole lot. I'm in my second week of the course, and I've actually just signed up 2 trucks. So it works. So it's definitely worth the cost. If you're hesitating, don't hesitate, pull the trigger. The most important things that I've learned so far are: 1, marketing is the most important thing. Sales and marketing is your business. That's the business you're in, sales and marketing. If you don't have any marketing or you don't have any sales, you don't have a business. So that is the most important thing. Secondly, you have to work your plan of the day and your plan of the week. Those things keep you on task. If you are not, if you don't work the business don't work. So you have to plan out your day, and you have to plan out your weeks in advance to make sure that you are doing something in your business absolutely every single day. If you don't, you're going to lose the air in your balloon. Is just going to deflate, and your business is going to just go under. It just won't work out for you. You have to stay busy in your business every day. And that's what I've done for like the last, I don't know, month. I have been hitting it hard every day, and I did get 2 drivers today. So I'm extremely happy about that. And I'm so grateful to Antoine for all of his assistance. Take the course, work the business, focus on sales and marketing. Don't worry about all that other stuff. How do I do this? How do I do it? Work your sales and marketing. Get your line of people first, then worry about learning how to do the nuts and bolts of it. Without marketing, you have no business. Without marketing, you have no customers. No customers mean no business.
Okay, guys, we're going to get right back in it. Like I said, right now we're going to go over load boards. This is the bread and butter of dispatching, and this is what is going to make you your money. So I'm going to start off with Truckstop. Here we have Truckstop. I have Indianapolis, Indiana put in as the city where we're looking for loads, and I have a 150-mile radius. So on a load board, radius basically means you're deadhead. So I'm looking around Indianapolis, Indiana within 150 miles. So basically, when you're finding your driver the next load, you want to stay within 150 miles. That doesn't mean that you're always going to be at 150 miles when you're picking up the next load, or it doesn't mean that sometimes you're not going to go over that. But anywhere within 150 miles, I believe, is acceptable. But of course, if you can book your driver a load 80 miles away where he just has to deadhead, like I said, dead is the distance you go to, the distance you drive with the empty trailer. You're not making any money. You're burning fuel. So you want to keep the deadhead as low as possible. So definitely, if you can book your driver a load that's 50 miles away from where he's dropping off at, that's even better. Sometimes if you're in a slow area, you might have to set the radius out on your load board to 200 miles and look for something within 200 miles. But most of the time I keep mine set at 150 miles, and mostly all the loads I book are within 150 miles or less. So here on Truckstop, when you get Truckstop load board access, to enter your first search, you're going to go to new search right there. It says new search, and click it. And you would type in the city here where it says origin. You type in the city. In this case, we're going to look out of Indianapolis. Let me spell my hometown right there. State, like I say, you're going to need to know your state abbreviations. IN, the radius or the deadhead, I would set at 150. Destination, we're going to leave this blank because we don't care where the load is going to. We want to see all loads. But just say we had a driver going home. So say that driver was from Virginia Beach, Virginia. You put in Virginia Beach for the city, VA for the state, and the radius. If your driver was trying to go home, you might, for the radius, you might put in 250 miles, because if your driver's trying to go home, he drops off the load and it's 200 miles away from home, he or she might just have to deadhead that other 200 miles. That's not bad in that case, because they're trying to get to a specific place, which is home. So if they deadhead that 200 miles, it's okay. But when your driver just out on the road, most likely they don't need to get to any specific destination. So you just leave that blank. You come over here, you put in the type of equipment. Say we are dispatching for a hot shot, HS for hot shot, then comma. A lot of loads that's able to go on a hot shot or also be able to go on a step deck. So put in step deck. So this way, it doesn't matter. If you're dispatching for a step deck or a hot shot, all of these loads are going to come up. So you don't want to miss out on anything, because sometimes brokers will post a load for a hot shot, step deck, flatbed. So you want to give yourself as many different options as you can. So we'll also put in FSD, flatbed, or step deck. So basically, by setting up the load board this way, you're maximizing the amount of loads that will populate. This way, loads for hot shots, step decks, or flatbeds, all those loads pop up. So it don't matter if you're dispatching for a hot shot, step deck, or flatbed, all those loads are going to pop up. If you're dispatching for a dry van or a reefer, RGN, you would just go down the list. You can, if you already know the abbreviation here on Truckstop, you can just type it in like I did. If not, they have a lot of different types of trucks, more than me or you guys will probably ever dispatch for. Or Conestoga, you would just click on that. So whatever you're dispatching for, you would just hit that drop down arrow and select that certain type of truck. Pickup date. Like I said, the load board isn't really active right now, but what we'll do, we'll just say pickup date is Monday. And if you could pick something up on Tuesday or Wednesday, you just put all that in there. So we're just going to say Monday. So typically the loads that you would look for on Monday to pick up on Monday, you would have did that on Friday. So on Friday, you would look for loads for on Monday. So your driver can already have the load information, already have the rate confirmation or the rate con, which we will go over later. And I'll show you an example that we also emailed to you, so you might have already seen it. So on Friday, say I look for my driver a load for Monday. I got him a load booked to pick up on Monday, close to where he's dropping off at on Monday. On Friday, I would have sent him all that information and everything. So as soon as he drops off, he can go get that other load for Monday. But sometimes you might not find a load on Monday to book for Monday when you're looking Friday. So in that case, you just have to wake up Monday morning, be on a load board nice and early. I would say be on a load board by at least 8 o'clock minimum, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes you'll see load come on the load board before that, maybe around 7:30. So I would say at the least be looking on the load board by 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. It'd be even better to be on there at least 7:30. So I say between 7:30 and 8 a.m. Eastern Time, be looking on the load board. And what you have to remember, if you're on the West Coast, if you're in California, 3 hours behind, mostly everyone is going to operate on Eastern Time. Say you have a driver in North Carolina looking for a load out on Monday and you're in California, that means you're probably going to have to wake up really early to be looking for a load. You can't wait to 8 o'clock your time to start looking for a load for that driver. So keep that in mind too. Or even if you're on Central Time, remember you're going to be an hour behind when most brokers open. Some brokers, they don't open to, maybe they're on Central Time, so they don't open to 9 o'clock Eastern Time, which is 8 o'clock their time. Some will do that, some don't. So like I said, but you want to make sure you're on that load board nice and early. We're just going to put Monday in here. Okay, when posted. I always keep this at 2 hours, because when you go and change this to 8 hours, so that means any loads posted within 8 hours will pop up. But the thing is, if it's a good load, if it's paying a good rate, it's not going to be on the load board for 8 hours. So if you're looking at something like 4 or 6 hours, those are going to probably be paying a very low rate that you don't want to book anyway. So you don't want to waste your time having those populate on your load board. So I always leave that at last 2 hours. Mode, I always leave that at any. You got total truckload, less than truckload, got intermodal, partial, plenty of others. But you just leave that at any. Partial is like a load that's not taking up the full truckload. And sometimes a partial is paying the same amount as a full truckload. Sometimes it's paying at least $2 a mile. And I'll teach you how to match up partials later on. But for these purposes, I always leave mode on any. You don't have to check any of this TARP, just leave that all unchecked and it's going to populate anyway. So you just want to give yourself as many options as you can. You would hit add to my searches and close. I already have all that information on the load board. We just did the exact same thing as I already did. So I'm not going to hit add to my searches and close. I'm just going to exit out of there. But if you hit add to my searches and close, it'll just go to this screen with the city and everything you typed in. So a lot of stuff on here that you don't have to worry about, but I want to point out the key things that you do have to worry about. So that is trailer. This is saying the type of trailer they need. They need an F for flatbed, SD for step deck. This is a SDL, I believe that's step deck or lowboy. Lowboy is a trailer that sits very low to the ground. So that commodity must be high because they want a step deck, which also sits low, but a lowboy sits even lower. So they're asking for either one. So you want to look at trailer, you want to look at the age when it was posted. So this just letting you know how many minutes ago it was posted, or if it was posted over an hour ago, it'd say an hour and 15 minutes. Mode doesn't matter so much. This is just if it's taking up the whole trailer or not. If it's paying the right amount of money for the miles, it doesn't matter if it's taking up the whole trailer or not. Pickup date, we want to look at this picking up. All these are picking up on 7/15 because that's the only date we set it for, which is Monday. Origin city is the city it's picking up from. And you can see here, this is saying from Indianapolis to Hallsville, Kentucky, the distance is 149 miles. So you'll want to look at that origin city and state here, these two. Like I said, that's why you want to know your state abbreviations if you don't. And you want to look at the distance, how far the deadhead is from the city where your driver is at. The destination, you want to look at that, the destination, city, and state. The distance, it's going to be 0 because we didn't type in the destination. So if we would have typed in a destination, basically if your driver is trying to get home, we put in a destination. This would say how far the distance is from Lafayette, Indiana to the destination city, which we did not put in. The rate, you want to look at that. That's how much it's paying. As you can see here, 850, 300, couple of 300s, couple 13, not a couple, but one 13,500. Like I said, I know the United States. Some of you guys might know this. I don't on CH. So it's leaving somewhere outside of the United States. That's why it's paying so much money. But I don't book any loads like that. So we got the length. Length is just telling you how long the load is. So you definitely want to know that. The weight, you want to know how long the weight is. You won't need to know DTP or EXP or fuel. You want to know miles. So this is saying how far the load is going. You'll want to know that. So basically what we have here is, let's just take this one for example. It's one that's paying $300. LaPorte, Indiana, 132 mile deadhead to Champaign, Illinois, paying $300. It's 48 feet long, 41,000 pounds. It's 171 miles. So if we divide that $300 by the 171 miles, we know that it's paying $1.75 per mile. You don't want to book very many loads like this because it's just going to waste your driver's time, only going 171 miles for $300. Sometimes it'll work out, but you want to get paid a higher rate anyway. Maybe if that was 171 miles for $500, $600, that might be okay, because sometimes you're depending on a deadhead, your driver might be able to pick up that load, drop it off, make that quick $600-700 or whatever, and then go and pick up another load all on the same day and then drop off that second load the next morning. But typically, like this load here for 171 miles for $300, it just takes up too much time because your driver has to go, get loaded. That might take a while, might be a tarp or need securing to the trailer. That takes a while. The driver has to drive those 171 miles and then get unloaded. So sometimes you might see a load like that going 171 miles, but it might take up the entire day. And then after it takes up the entire day, he or she won't have time to go pick up another load. So that's why typically you don't want to book loads like this unless maybe the deadhead is zero. It's picking up in Indianapolis, Indiana, going 171 miles to Champaign, Illinois, and paying a higher rate than $300 because $300 just is too low to be worth it. So maybe if it was going 171 miles for $600, I'll see what that is. That is $3.50 per mile. And I'm not saying that's the first load you want to hop on, but maybe that would be bad if your driver can do all that, get it loaded, unload it, and by noon he's empty again. And while he's doing all that, you're already looking for another load. Maybe you found another load, and then by 2 o'clock, your driver's picking up that next load, and he has that next load to drop off the next day. But typically what you want to do is try to get loads, maybe at least going like a really good load would be going 300 miles for $900 or $1,000. That's like a super good load because it keeps the miles down on the truck and it's paying a good amount of money. So that's that part. And also, you see how this load just popped up and it's highlighted. So what I do is I sort the loads by age. So the newest loads will come up first. You can sort them by weight to make the heaviest loads come up first or the lightest loads. But as you can see, we have 2 pages right now. And this is because it's the weekend. On a weekday, it might be 15, 20 pages. But if you separate the loads by weight, when a new one pops up, it might be all the way on the 5th page instead of the 1st page. I like separating them by time as soon as that load pop up, because remember, there's other dispatchers besides us looking for loads. I don't care what the weight is, how much it's paying or anything like that. I want the newest loads to come up first on my screen and not down a few pages. Like I said, if it's through the week, these loads could pop up on the 5th or 6th page out of 20 pages. And you can see the different pages here. Right now, it's just 2. Want the newest ones to pop up, and then as far as the rate, how much it's paying, it might not be a good load to take. It might not pay enough, but I can easily look at the rate and the miles and determine if it's paying enough, but it's the newest one. If you wait too long, another dispatcher is going to book these loads on you. And a lot of people don't know that to have the newest loads pop up first. So basically, once you're looking at a load, like I said, you want to get on average at least $2 per mile. Let's just look at this one that just came up, Lexington, Kentucky to Fort Walton Beach, Florida. You already know what I said about Florida. It can be hard getting out of. And let's see this one. They're paying $13.50 for 651 miles. So they're paying $207 a mile. So this would be a load we wouldn't want to take because it's going to a very slow region and it's barely paying above $2 per mile. But what we'll do, we'll click on that just to show you guys. Once you click on it, as you've seen there on the first page, you can get some information there. But after you click on it, it'll say a lot of the same information, how much it's paying, how many miles it's going, pick up, drop off. You can see the pickups date, saying it's either flatbed or step deck, mode, total load. So that means it's going to be taking up the entire trailer. It's 41,000 pounds, 48 feet. Sometimes they would give the height and width, but sometimes they won't. So you have to find that out when you actually call the broker. It says no tart needed, no Conestoga. So they won't let that load on a Conestoga. The broker is R&R Express Logistics Incorporated, and here's the broker's number. So when you actually book this load, you have to call the broker. So you have to call this 412 number. But like I said, this isn't a very good load, so we wouldn't want to take that load anyway. But here you can see the broker MC number. You see it there. And then the last one, you see the US DOT number. As you can see, this doesn't always happen, but this broker happens to be a carrier too. Some brokers also have their own trucks. You can be a broker and a carrier. And what I recommend really, the more you guys get into the business, is to be a broker, carrier, dispatcher, just do it all. Utilize every way to make money in this industry, and then you can't fail. So they also have a carrier MC number. So that lets me know they have their own trucks. Like I said, not a good load going into Florida. So I wouldn't want to take that. So like I said, as you look on the load board, the newest loads will be highlighted. And if you have them separated by age, the newest ones will come up first. Also, if you're looking for more than one driver, so we have another driver in Hinesville, Georgia. Open that up. I'm going to delete that out. It looks like no loads are there right now. That's a pretty slow area. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to open up Allentown, PA, which is good for freight. And you can always change how many items show up by page to 50 items per page. And if there were more than 50, you could change that. You could go through the different pages. But like I said, it is the weekend, so they're a little slower right now. Say you have a driver in Indianapolis and one in Allentown, PA. So this way, basically, you can just have your screen set like this and be looking for 2 loads at a time. So when new loads pop up in Indianapolis, they'll be highlighted and come up first. The same with Allentown, PA. So as a dispatcher, you definitely have to know how to multitask. Remember, as I said, you'll have your phone in your hand. You'll be doing the same thing on the DAT app, which we'll get into later. So here's a load. I just kept this open for you guys because it's a pretty decent load I wanted you to see. So it was on the load board earlier. It's paying $750 on 238 miles. So that's paying $315 a mile. Going from Indiana to Kentucky. The broker is Coyote Logistics LLC, as we see there. Got some more information. Got the load ID number, the extensions. Guys, in this business, like I said, time is money. So basically, if you see that they have an extension, you got the number right here, the office phone number. You already want to be looking at this extension. So when you dial this number, you can just put in an extension. Because if you don't move that fast, another dispatcher is going to be calling, and that's what they're going to be doing. And they're going to book that load. So if you see something come up like this, if you automatically just look at the rate, sometimes I use a calculator, but if you just look at something like this, 750 miles for $238, you already know is paying a good rate. So if you need to use the calculator to figure out exactly how much it's paying per mile, I wouldn't do that. When I just see the rate and the miles it's paying, I would be calling this number. And it's all about, you'll get used to it over time, but my eyes literally go from the rate, miles to phone number, and I'm dialing a number. And then I'm going to put in that extension. Everything else that I need, I'm going to find out once I'm on the phone. So because basically just because I called doesn't mean I have to book the load. I can decide not to book the load. Sometimes you never know. The driver can easily do 238 miles in a day. And sometimes they do pay these type of rates for this type of miles. But sometimes maybe something's going on at the receiver. They don't work on a certain day. So the broker is going to pay you more money because you're going to have to hold on to it for a day. So even though your driver could make that 238 miles in a couple of hours, maybe that receiver isn't going to be open that day or that next day. Maybe you got to hold on to it for a while. And when you start talking about things like that, the load wouldn't be worth it. But most likely, you'll just be able to drop it off the same day. So if you can drop off $750 the same day, drive those 238 miles, and then also, while the driver's driving those miles, I would be looking for another load. But the thing is, let's say it's Monday morning. Say we looked on Friday, our driver dropping off in Indianapolis, Indiana on Monday. But say we booked this load on Friday. We booked it for pickup on Monday. And we already knew our driver just had to drive only 238 miles. So that's why I say it's good to book loads the day before. If it's Friday, already have your load booked for Monday. Say our driver's dropping off in Indianapolis, Indiana on Monday. This load here, we booked it on Friday, but we booked it for pickup on Monday. So that means after our driver drops off on Monday, he's going straight here and picking up this load. But as dispatchers, we know this load is only going 238 miles. So what we're going to do Monday morning, we're going to be looking for a load out of Kentucky to keep the driver rolling. So like I said, the more loads your driver can pick up and drop off in a week that's paying good money on good miles, the more money they're going to make and the more money you're going to make. So with this load, when he picks up this load on Monday morning, the thing wouldn't be just to sit around or to look for something Tuesday. You want him to try to be able to pick up something else on Monday also after this load. So for me, it's a good low miles and a very good rate for the miles. Like I said, I would call this number now, but the brokers are closed on weekends. So on Monday morning, first thing Monday morning, if my driver was dropping off in Indianapolis, I would already have this in my head and I would already be planning on calling about this load. And basically when you call a broker, a lot of people are nervous when you start making these initial phone calls, but it's pretty easy. So basically once you call this number, you dial the extension, you're going to say, I'm looking at your Becknell, Indiana to Brea, Kentucky load. And after you say that, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I can't pronounce, but it depends on what town or city. Maybe I don't know how to pronounce the town or city. No problem. It's not going to stop the show. Brea, Kentucky, I might say I'm looking at the load from Bicknell, Indiana to Kentucky. That's all you have to say. They're going to know what you're talking about. You just have to say where the load's picking up from, dropping off to, and tell them you're looking at that load. They're going to know you want more information. They're going to say, yes, a load of lumber weighs 47,136 pounds. We got 48 feet long. If we're calling Monday, they're going to say, yeah, pick up today. You can possibly drop it off today if your driver can make those 238 miles. If not, you can drop it off first thing Tuesday morning. And we're doing $750 on that load. It's going to be basically easy as that. I know earlier I said I always negotiate on this load. It's paying such a good rate, especially if my driver could drop it off the same day. Honestly, I wouldn't negotiate on this because I know the broker is probably not going to go up any higher. It's paying good money. And some brokers, they will just try to lowball people and take their money. And I know that. On the flip side, some brokers try to offer a really good rate. So I don't want to, it's all about business. It's all about building relationships too, which I'll talk about later. I feel like I would be disrespecting this broker if I could drop the load off the same day and they're paying $750 on 238 miles. So I know I said I always negotiate, but at the same time, you want to build good relationships. So after he's offering such a good rate, I'm not going to try to get more money out of him. I'm just going to take it as is, and he's happy, I'm happy, my client is happy because it's a good rate. So that's basically how it works. If this load wasn't paying so much, say it was just paying $500, you'll want to get a higher rate. So when you call him, he tells you all the information and he says we're doing $750 on it. After he tells you all the information and he says he's doing $500 on it, I would ask him, can you do $800? He might not give me that much, but at least I set a starting point and he can try to talk me down. He might be like, oh, we can't do 800, but we can do 700. I probably would take it for $700. So certain cases, negotiate. Certain times, don't ruin your relationship because you're very likely to call this same broker back again for another load he has posted the next day, or maybe a week, or maybe it's a month down the road. But I talk to the same brokers all the time. So you definitely want to start building those relationships. And when you get the load board access, like I said, you want to definitely make sure you set it to where the newest loads pop up first. And as we said earlier, pay attention to your regions sheet. Pay attention to where these loads are dropping off to. You just don't want to book any load dropping off anywhere. Also, with Truckstop, we're going to get into DAT after this, but Truckstop, a lot of times the distance is off. The distance between where your driver's at and where it's picking up at. For example, this says Indianapolis, Indiana is 148 miles from Lexington, Kentucky. That's probably a little bit lower than what it actually is. So you want to pay attention to that. And the total miles from pickup to drop off with Truckstop. So both of these distances are usually off by 20 miles. So that's why you want to make sure you do your research. So basically, instead of just taking what Truckstop says, so this one, if our driver is in Indianapolis, Indiana, the load's picking up in Bicknell, Indiana, you want to go over to Google and Google Indianapolis, Indiana to Bicknell, Indiana. And we see that is 109 miles. For Truckstop, it'll probably say on the actual load board, it probably would tell you it's 85 miles. Not that big of a difference, but a little bit of difference. And then the same thing, you want to go over to Google and Google pickup city and drop off city. Let's see what Truckstop says. Pick up and drop off, it says 238 miles. When we Google it, it says it's 245 miles. Just a little bit of a difference, not much to matter that much, but who knows? Maybe one day a load could be 30 miles off. And the thing is, even with this little bit of difference, if the rate wasn't on there, I want to negotiate having 245 miles in my head instead of the 238. Not much of a difference at all this time, but like I said, sometimes it could be off 40 miles. And if you negotiate what's on the mileage on Truckstop, you could be cheating yourself. You don't have to bring it up to the broker. You don't have to tell them the load board's miles is off. You just know actually how many miles it is, because I think it's the load board that the miles are off, not what the broker just puts in the zip code, city and state, when they put loads on the load board. So I think it's the actual load board that's not calculating up the miles. And I always see that on Truckstop. So just make sure you look them up yourself. So Google is your friend. Also, we see where this load is dropping off. Sometimes I click on the map. Sometimes I'll do this all while I'm booking the load. I don't take my time and do this before I call, because like I said, another dispatcher could call and book the load. So while I'm on the phone with the broker, that's why I recommend having a good Bluetooth headset or headphones, whatever you may use, so you can be hands-free. Have your phone on speakerphone if they can still hear you clear, whatever works best for you. But you want to have your hands free, so while you're talking to the broker, he's explaining the load to you. Maybe you're going over to the map, you're seeing where it's dropping off to, and maybe you look at this and you say, oh, okay, that's a place with high freight, so that's a good place to book a load. Good to go. Another thing I want to mention to you guys, up in region 2, New York State. There's a big difference when you're going into New York City. There are a lot of tows going into New York City. So when you book a load going into New York City, typically those loads can pay as much as $10 a mile. It just depends on the load, because your driver's going to have to pay for those tows. So you just don't want to book a load for $2 or $3 a mile going to New York City. $4 a mile isn't even really going to cut it. You need a really high rate, $5, $6, $10 per mile going into New York City. But what brokers would do sometimes, they'll just pick a city. They'll pick a little town in New York City. It might be, let's say, Riverhead here, Riverhead, New York. So you'll just be looking for loads. You'll be on the load board. You'll see the destination city is Riverhead, New York. And you could go ahead and book that load, because you might just hear Riverhead, New York, and think it's up here by Albany, New York, or something like that. And that wouldn't be a problem. When you're going into the city, one of the boroughs, you need to keep that in mind, that you need a higher rate. Most of the time you see a load on the load board that's going into New York City, it's not going to say Brooklyn, New York, or the Bronx, New York, because the brokers know what they're doing. It could not even be the brokers trying to pull a slick one on you. They could actually be putting the actual town inside New York City. But that's where you have to do your research. So if you see anything going to New York, make sure you put it in Google if it is Garden City, New York, which looks like it's on Long Island. You want to make sure you're getting a good rate to go inside Long Island. But like I said, if your driver, if that load is going into Middletown, New York, Downsville, New York, something like that, that's a different story, because the tows, they're not going to have those high tows like going into New York City. So back to the load board here on Truckstop. That's basically how Truckstop.com, I use the website more than I use the app, but at the same time as I'm looking for loads in Indianapolis, Indiana, I'll be looking in Allentown, PA, if I have a driver in each place. The good thing is, when you do have a driver close to each other, maybe you can just look at it. You say you have 2 drivers in Indianapolis, or 1 driver in Indianapolis and 1 driver 50 miles away in a town right outside of Indianapolis. You might just be able to look in Indianapolis for those 2 loads. Or when you call about a load, they might tell you, oh, we have 3 of these loads. Do you have more than 1 truck in the area? You might, oh yeah, perfect. We got 2 trucks. So sometimes it works out like that. In that case, maybe the load could be paying $1,000. You get your 8%, you get $80, but you got 2 trucks in the area. So instead of $80, you get $160 off of 1 phone call. So those are things just to keep in mind as you start dispatching more. So that's basically Truckstop. And all the things I said, keep in mind, it depends on what type of truck you're dispatching for. If it's a hot shot, flatbed, step deck, drive-in, you want to at least get $2 a mile. If it's a reefer, you want to get more than $2 a mile, or RGN, you want to get more than $2 a mile. You want to ask the person you're dispatching for how much they usually get, or on average how much they get, or how much would they like to see per mile. But you don't want to be looking for RGNs and thinking $2 per mile is enough, because it isn't. So that's basically Truckstop. It will refresh on its own. You don't have to refresh your screen or anything like that. As new loads come up, they will be highlighted and posted at the top of the page if you have it separated by age. So next, I want to show you guys DAT. Like I said, I like using DAT more on my phone. So what I'm going to do is show you some screenshots I took of DAT, because I actually want to be able to show you how the app looks and not the website. After you get the load board access, if you want to see how the website looks, you can definitely log in on their website, but I know the app is much better. So let me pull up the presentation again, and I want to show you guys how DAT's app looks. So this is DAT. This is how their app looks. So basically the same kind of thing, but on DAT's app, you put in origin city. Again, we have Indianapolis, Indiana. You put in the deadhead, which I usually, same with Truckstop, I usually have 150 miles. Destination, anywhere. Truck type, I have here flatbed, hot shot, or step deck. If we're looking for a hot shot, most hot shots are 40 feet, but you can't have that overhead. So you want to put in 42 feet, or let's just say a 48-foot flatbed, you want to put in maybe 50 feet, because that overhang, you can have overhang, a short amount of overhang. So you don't want to miss out on those loads if it is some overhang. So you want to put more on the length. Hot shot, most of them can scale 20,000 pounds. I put in 20,000 pounds here. Full or partial. So they want to know if you want to look for full truckloads or partials. I always go with both. Here you can put in your start date, your end date. So this is just the dates the loads can be picked up, from the first date to the last date. And then once you hit search, kind of the same thing type of deal as Truckstop, they'll come up and they'll look like this. Show the city where it's picking up, city where it's dropping off, the deadhead. So this is saying Bargersville, Indiana is 19 miles away from Indianapolis, Indiana. It is saying Bargersville, Indiana and Valencia, Pennsylvania are 402 miles apart. On your phone, whatever load you want to call about, you want to click on it and it'll show you more information, just like Truckstop. Same thing as Truckstop. These ones, I don't see any rate posted, but if the rate was already posted, it would be there. So once you click on it, it might show you a little bit more information, how much it weighs. The broker is Landstar. So like I said, the middleman, like we talked about in the beginning of the training, for this one is Landstar. Landstar is one of the biggest brokers, which a lot of you might already know. Some brokers require the carrier to be in business a certain amount of time before they will give that carrier a load. And like I said, when you call for a load for the carrier, you work for the carrier. So it's all about the carrier's information. So basically, some brokers would say that a carrier has to be in business 3 months or 6 months before they can haul a load with that broker. They want to see that carrier has some experience in business and with hauling loads and things like that. Sometimes the trucking company might be new, but your driver might have been driving for 20 years. But for some odd reason, the broker thinks if the longer the trucking company has been in business, the more reliable that you are. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's their rules, and most of the time you can't change that. And the reason I wanted to bring that up, because Landstar, so is one of the brokerages, you can have your company 2 days. Even if you have it 2 days, they're going to let you book loads with them. So when you're out there and you're dispatching with people with new authorities or new trucking companies, Landstar is one of the brokerages that will let you haul a load for them, even if they're new. So keep that in mind. So as a new company you're dispatching for, Landstar, you're good to go. As you start dispatching more, you'll learn the companies that want 3 months, 6 months. So basically, you don't have to waste your time if you know the trucking company you're dispatching for has 2 months in business, but this certain broker, they want 3 months or 6 months. You don't even have to call about that load, because you'll be wasting your time, because that's what they'll tell you. So here you got the MC number. That's the MC number of the broker, the phone number, and on your app, you'll be able to click this button right here where you see the phone symbol, and it automatically call this number. And again, when you call this number, what I would do with this load, I'll say I'm looking at the load you have from Bargersville, Indiana to Valencia, Pennsylvania. They'll start telling me information. They'll tell me a lot of information that's already in my face. They'll say, yeah, pick up today, drop off tomorrow. They'll probably tell me the weight is 1,700 pounds, which is very light. They'll tell me all that information plus a bunch more, whether it needs a tarp or not. But the thing I want to get at, while they're telling me that, I got my calculator in my hand. I already know, like, it's going basically 400 miles. I know $800 is $2 a mile. They might say it needs a tarp, so I just do the 400. I know it says 402 miles, but those little 2 miles don't make a difference. They say it needs a tarp, I do 400 times 2.5, and know I want to get hopefully $1,000 because it needs a tarp, but I want to get more than that. So while they're talking to me, telling me all this information, I'm formulating how much I want to tell them I can do it for. So when they tell you all that, most of the time they're going to take a pause for you to say something. Or if they don't take that pause after they tell you all the information, they're going to say, yep, it's about a 400-mile trip and we can do $800 on that. If they don't say that, what they might try to do is ask you how much. They might explain the load to you, give you all the information, and they'll ask, how much can you do it for? This is where they try to get you. Because if you say $800, if you say that $2 a mile rate, they're going to come back at you and they're going to say, we don't quite got $800 in it, but we can do it for $650, or I can give you $700 to do it. So you never want to say that. If they don't tell you the rate, a lot of times they'll explain all the information to you and you'll ask them, how much do you have on that one? They might say $800. Sometimes they might come back at you and ask, oh, how much can you do it for? I was just trying to get a rate for it. So how much can you move it for? If they ask you that, you want to shoot high on them. If they ask me how much I can do it for, I'm always going to say at least $3 a mile. So if he asked me how much I can do this load for, I would say $1,200 and let him talk me down from there. Have a range in mind that you're not willing to go below. So for this load, if you're not willing to go below $900, I would tell him I can do it for $1,200 and let him try to work me down from there. And if it gets too low, just stop and say, I'm sorry, too low for me, I can't do it, but thanks. And that's just it. And then you go back to the load board and look for a different load. But it looks like we're coming up on, was 12:55. We'll meet back at 1:05. And like I said, guys, if you got any questions, I'll get to them at the end. Once you find a load, how do you find a driver? Apologies, I can tell I wasn't clear on that. Before you look for a load, you're going to have a driver to take the load. So the whole purpose of looking for a load, let's say in Indianapolis, Indiana, is because you have an empty truck in Indianapolis, Indiana. So sometimes I save that part to the end about actually running the business, and we'll get more into that. Running the business, how you get paid, invoicing, the clients you're working for. So we still have to go over all that stuff. We're definitely going to get that clear so you have a good understanding about that. Basically, like I said, you're going to have a truck, a client you're working with before you find a load. You're definitely not going to be looking for loads and then trying to find the first thing on your clients. Which I said earlier, I recommend using social media, using Facebook, making a Facebook business page to do that. And I do also have further training about starting a Facebook business page, all the analytics and everything like that I go into. And if you want to know more about that, you can send me an email. That training, I do a one-on-one training. I help you make your Facebook business page, and I charge $100 for that one. And I definitely go much further in the Facebook analytics and marketing and targeting people for your dispatch business on Facebook. But we will definitely get into getting clients and how to sign them up and everything like that right now. So basically, this is a dispatcher to carrier agreement. So once you start that Facebook business page, or through word of mouth, or through passing out flyers at truck stops, whatever you do to get clients to dispatch, they will need to fill out one of your agreements. And what I would do if I was you, it doesn't matter if you copy and paste everything I have here and then just put your own company name, that's fine too. But basically, this agreement is signing people up for your dispatching services. You guys have this in your email, so if you want to go over this and read it thoroughly, you can. But here you see I say that a carrier agrees to pay flat rate of 8% per load. The invoice will be sent out on Friday for all your weekly loads and due on Sunday. You will get paid after you book the loads. So basically, you have them fill this out, sign it, and everything. I have a place on here for their company information, place on here about their trucks that they have, their factoring companies, which we still have to talk about, insurance information, and all that good stuff. So they fill this out and they get it back to you. And that's signing them up for your dispatch service. So basically, when they fill this out, they give it back to you. They're going to need to send their carrier information to you. And that contains their certificate of authority, which you see here on this example, has the USDLT number, which is here, has their MC number, motor carrier number, which is there. So this is called their certificate of authority. You will need this back from them because you're going to need to give this information to brokers. So you need this information back from them. You need their COI, or certificate of insurance. You hear COI a lot. This is their certificate of insurance, saying how much insurance they have. So for a trucking company, you have to have $1 million in liability and at least $100,000 in cargo. That's what every trucking company has to have minimum. You got your W-9, which basically gives your EIN, your employee identification number, the address, all the information to the company you're working for. So you need these three things back from them. This is really important. You need their certificate of authority. You need their COI, or certificate of insurance, and you need their W-9, those three things. So when you go to book loads for brokers, if you have never hauled a load for a broker before, you need to get set up with that broker. Broker will send you a packet to fill out. I want to say this part to the end. This is the paperwork side. So you know how to book loads now. This is the paperwork that comes with booking loads. And a lot of this paperwork you will have to do before you can book the load, But before they give you the load, you have to fill out this paperwork. So the trucking company you're working for could possibly be 8 different trucking companies. If that specific trucking company hasn't hauled a load with that broker, whether the broker is Landstar or Total Quality Logistics, whatever broker it is, your first time hauling a load with that broker, they will send you over a new setup package. All of them are different. I sent you guys an example, and you can see the one here. You have to fill out the company name, physical address, the mailing address, phone number, fax number, different things like this. Again, this is not your company name or your dispatch service, not your physical address. Anything you ever fill out for a broker, none of your actual information will go on there, because at that time, you're basically a contractor to the trucking company. So the company name, everything like that comes from the trucking company. And if we go back over here, you're going to have all that. I blacked it out, but basically the address. You can look on the W-9. It says the address of the company. So you don't have to remember about hard or anything. You're going to have it on the W-9. So when it says company name, you can get that out to W-9 and it'll be on the certificate of authority. This one is Great America Transport. Company name, you'll put that there. For company name, you put the physical address, which you can also get off the W-9. It'll be here. You start filling all that out. Like I said, every broker has a different packet. Most of them are similar. Some of them will be, you have to print it out, fill it out, scan it, and email it back. Brokers will send a link, and you just click the link, and you fill out everything online. Those are the easiest and the quickest to do. So this broker carrier contract is made by and between. A lot of times they won't put this in here, but what they're wanting to know is just the city and state that the company was formed in. So back for this company, it's located in Orlando, Florida. So you would just come over here and you put Orlando, Florida. So what I mainly want you guys to see, all the information you need to fill out the broker packet would be in the packet the trucking company sent you, which contains the certificate of authority, COI, and W-9. It'll all be on there. So you might have to have the trucking company's packet printed out. I usually print out all mine and keep with me, or just have it easily accessible on your computer. You'll want to know the permit number, which is the MC number. So you just put the MC number there, read through this stuff. It's just going to say different stuff about that brokerage firm. This one, they want you to initial down here in the right-hand corner. So on every page, it says initial, just read through. It's talking about the rates and charges and everything like that. Read through and initial. You eventually get to where you don't read through these because they're not going to say anything that you don't already know. It'd just be too much time. So you're just going to want to initial there, initial here, initial there. Then, like I said, most of these are going to say the same thing, but maybe in a different way. So the carrier, you're going to write the trucking company's name here because they're the carrier. You're going to print your name, title, you're going to write dispatcher, and you're going to date it. And then you're going to send it back to them. So this is going to be done anytime you haul a load for a broker for the first time. Tomorrow, you call back, you want to book a load, you're looking for a load, and you want to book a load for them. You're going to have to fill out another carrier packet and put all of the information on this carrier packet we're looking at now. And you need to send in a packet, which contains the 3 things I named earlier, which we see here. So my main point is, if that individual trucking company has never hauled a load with that broker, you need to fill out. The broker is going to let you know because they don't have you in their system. So they're going to send you one of their packets to fill out and sign. And they're going to ask that you send, and you need to do this to get the load. You're going to need to send that trucking company's packet back to the broker. So like I said, you guys have both of these, and so you can just look over them and you know what you need to ask from your trucking companies when they sign up with you, and you know what brokers are going to ask for the first time you haul a load with them. So basically, if you do all this stuff today with one trucking company, you call back a week later to book another load from that same broker with the same trucking company, you don't need to do it again. You just make the phone call. They say, okay, I see you're in our system. You're already set up with us. You're good to go. I'll be sending over the rate confirmation. If you never had a load form, you're going to do this paperwork, and then they're going to send the rate confirmation. And now we're going to get into the rate confirmations. So the rate confirmation or the rate con, this is what they look like. A rate confirmation from different brokers are going to look different. They're going to be set up different, but they're going to contain the same information. You can go see stuff. The main things you need to look at is the rate. Make sure that it's paying the rate that you guys agreed to on the phone, because if you agree to a rate, say you agree to $1,000 and then you get this for $900, you don't check it, but you don't check that rate, you sign it, send it back, the broker, when the driver goes pick up that load, drops it off, and this says $900 but not $1,000 what you verbally agreed on, you're basically stuck at $900, and that's less money for the trucking company and less money for you. So you want to check that the rate is the amount you verbally agreed on. You want to check the pickup city and state, the drop off city and state. You want to check the DIMs. So when you call the DIMs or the dimensions, they would tell you how tall it is, how wide it is, how high it is. And you want to make sure those dimensions are the same as what the broker told you. So it might help when you're booking a load and they're reading information off to you that you're jotting it down so you can make sure it's the same. The weight, it looks like this load was 6,000 pounds. You want to make sure the weight is the same. You want to make sure the pickup date, drop off date is all good, just like the broker told you over the phone. You'll have some more stuff in here. If it's tarp, no tarp, you see this one is no tarp, no tarp on that one. See some other stuff about PPE, personal protective equipment. So all drivers, they should already know they need hard hats, long pants, safety glasses, vests, things like that. Some places they go and pick up a load from require steel toe boots, no open sandals, but that's more on the driver, and they should already have those things in the truck. Some trucking companies are new, so yeah, you might have to let them know that they need to have this PPE. So those are the main things on a rate confirmation. Carrier signature, you would sign it. This one's asking for the driver's phone number. You give the driver's phone number. And this is asking for the agent's name. So this is probably the agent at the brokerage firm. I know I booked this load, but like something like that, I wouldn't even worry about putting the agent's name. They can do that on their own. So those are the main things on a rate confirmation. And like I said, the rate confirmation is basically a document saying everything you talked about verbally on the phone with the broker. So this is everything you talked about in black and white. So you just sign this. Most of the time when I first started, I would have to print this off, sign it, scan it, and email it back to the broker. Just like the packages that I showed you over here that you have to fill out when it's your first time hauling a load with a broker. How I said sometimes they'll send a link and you'll be able to type all this out on your computer, which is much easier, and you'll be able to sign it too using that link. Same thing with a rate confirmation. Some of them, they'll send you a link. The actual rate confirmation will come up. You'll be able to most of the time, just type your name in for the signature, type the driver's phone number in, and then just go down and hit submit. And then basically the broker would get that, and you will be emailed a final copy with your signature and the driver's phone number and all that good stuff. You'll be emailed a copy, and bam, you got your rate confirmation. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think I have it later on in the training, but the thing is, the easiest way to get your driver this is to have your emails coming to your phone. And once you get the rate confirmation, once you check it and everything, if you checked and it's good to go, for the sake of time, you can go ahead and screenshot it and send a text to your driver of that screenshot with the rate confirmation. So that's everything they need to know. So bam, it's like with that rate confirmation, they know where it's picking up from, dropping off to, how much it's paying, phone numbers to the shipper, everything they need to know. 95% of the time is on that rate confirmation. So I would screenshot it and send it to them. That can be before or after you sign it, but it has to be, but you need to check over it first, because if something's not right, you want to call the broker back. So I screenshot that to your driver so they can go ahead and get on the road and get moving. And then the signed copy, I would email that to your driver's email address, because they're going to need it in a PDF format, which we'll get into in just a minute, because your driver most likely will have to factor that load. So we're going to get back into that stuff here in a minute, more paperwork, more forming your LLC, but I want to get back into actually finding loads, because I want to make sure you guys get this. I want to make sure you get the other information too, but I just don't want to jump too far off of this. So I'm going to try to be quick with this assembling partials. The reason I'm going to try to be quick, because this is not something I do a lot. I think it's partials, like I said earlier, are loads that don't take up the full length of the trailer. So I don't do this a lot because there's a lot that goes into it. And most of the time you can find one good load that's paying enough money to make your driver money. But you can put partials on. So what partials is, so you got a 48-foot flatbed, you pick up a 20-foot load somewhere, and then you pick up another load that's maybe 30 feet from a different shipper. So you got two separate, totally different loads on the trailer, and you can do that. Some brokers would require that it be dedicated. So they'll say this load is dedicated, meaning you can't put something else up on the trailer with it. Because if you do that, you guys agreed that it'd be dedicated, that it'd be by itself, and it's on the rate con. If you do put something else with it, and say you show up to the receiver and drop it off, and you got something else on the trailer, and I'm dropping this off down the road, it's just another load, they can take money off of that rate. Who knows, they possibly could not pay you at all, because that's not what you're supposed to do. A lot of loads are partials, and it's okay to put them with another partial. So it's just a process of matching up two loads that are less than truckload. They need to be picking up within the same distance, and together they need to be paying a good rate. So you need to find two loads to fit on a trailer. They're paying a good rate. The key factors when assembling partials are pickup / drop off locations, how far they are away from each other, rate on each load. You need to make sure the total distance with both loads and the total amount that both loads are paying matches up, and that's paying like a good amount over $2 a mile, because you wouldn't do this if it's not paying a good amount over $2 a mile. You need to pay attention to the weight and length of each load. So it depends on what type of truck you're dispatching for, how long the trailer is, how much weight can it scale. So basically, when you get set up with these new clients, and it's in that packet I showed you, that packet that I said you'll need to make up your own for your own trucking company, it's in there where every time you get set up with a new client, they're coming to you for your services. I have mine set up to where they have to put how much their truck can scale. So you'll know how much weight you can put on that trailer. So you definitely need to know the weight and the length of each load, and consider that and do the math work to make sure that it's not overweight or it's not over the length of the trailer. You need to know the loading and unloading hours of each load. So the first factor to look at when assembling partials is that each load is picking up within a short distance of each other, or load B, which is the second load that is picking up en route to the drop-off location of load A. For the purposes of this training, I will call the first load that is picked up load A, and the second load picked up load B. Like I said, guys, I think this is more advanced. You might be picking up partials sometimes, but it's more advanced than first starting off dispatching. So I don't want you guys to focus too much on this, because even nowadays, I don't book that many partials just because it takes too much time. It's too much time on the driver, picking up two different loads, dropping off two different loads. It's a lot of work. But the thing, sometimes it might not be any loads where your driver is at, or like we were talking about the regions earlier, if your driver is in one of those slow regions, you might have to match up two partials. That's the time you might have to match up two partials, or sometimes maybe a partial is paying like $2.60 a mile, and it's only 10 feet long, 5,000 pounds. Sometimes you might see that. And when you see that, you might, hey, get hungry. You might think, okay, hey, I can put another load on this trailer. And if it all works out, we'll be making $5, $6 per mile. So that's the only time I really do finals. If a partial is paying a really good rate, I think that's good, because I get that partial, which is a small load, on the trailer. And then if I do find my driver another partial to go with it, it's just extra money. But say your driver takes off and you can't find nothing on the way, then you just can't find anything. But he already has $2.50, $2.60 on the trailer. But I wouldn't spend my time looking for partials. So for this example, load A picks up in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's going from Indianapolis, Indiana to Newark, New Jersey. It's 10,000 pounds, 20 feet long. That's a distance of 700 miles, paying $1,050. As we all know, if the load is going 700 miles, you want to try to at least get $1,400, but that load isn't exactly paying $1,400. But you see another load B going from Dayton, Ohio to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 6,000 pounds, 10 feet long. That's 438 miles, paying $700. And it doesn't always work out this perfect. That's why I don't move many partials, too time consuming, but sometimes partials will be out there and they're paying good money. So that's when you need to jump on them. Like I said, that load A picking up from Indianapolis, Indiana, going to Newark, New Jersey. You got load B picking up in Dayton, Ohio, going to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. As you can see, that's all on the way. That's all on I-70, pretty much. So that would work out, but it doesn't always work out that perfect. Sometimes you have to go out your way a little bit to pick up load B. But if you go out your way too much, it won't make sense, because you're driving too far to pick up that second load. So Matching up partials will really take doing some homework. It really take probably you writing it out, the overall mileage, the overall pay, and make sure it works. So I'm not going to talk too much longer on partials because, like I said, I don't recommend doing them that much, especially first starting off. It just takes too much time when there's good paying loads out there where you can just put that one load on the trailer and be on your way. So carrier information, that's what I showed you guys, the authority W-9 and insurance. So we're going to keep moving along, just looking at the questions. I want to take that hour for the question and answer session, but if you guys have something about this particular material that you're not quite understanding, I don't want to move on. So like I said, I was seeing a lot of questions about booking loads and trucks. So definitely you're going to have we have OD loads or overdimensional loads. There are loads I talked about earlier that can hang off the trailer a little bit on each side. So most flatbed trailers, step decks, or hot shots are 8.5 feet in width. Anything over 8 feet 6 inches is an oversized load. They require special hauling permits. You have to have a special permit for each state that load is going through. So if a load is picking up in Kentucky and it's going through Kentucky, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, you have to have an oversized permit for each state. And that does cost is different per state. Some states are $20, some are $30, some are more than that, or in between. You must display red flags and oversized banners on the front and rear vehicle. The rate per mile would increase. For these loads, you can get $5, $6 per mile. And remember, you make a percentage off of these loads. If you get a load that's paying $5, $6 a mile, it's just more money for you. We do oversized permits. That info email address, if you have an oversized load, you need the permits, you can email us. We can get you those permits. If you want to learn how to get them on your own, you can just email me too. We can work on learning you how to get those loads, those permits on your own. But oversized loads can really increase the profit of the trucking companies you're working for. So a factoring company. So earlier when we were talking about dispatching loads, I wanted to tell you how to dispatch the loads and walk you through the process before I explain this. So now you'll understand what I mean by a factoring company. So a factoring company is the transaction in which a business sells its invoices or receivables to a third party financial company known as a factor. The factor then collects payment on those invoices from the business's customers. Factoring is known in some industries as accounts receivable financing. So basically, when your client goes, picks up a load, and then drops it off, they don't get paid for that load right away. Most trucking companies, particularly newer trucking companies, are going to use a factoring company because it could take that trucking company 30 or 60 days before they get paid for that load. And usually nobody has 30 or 60 days to wait to get paid. So they use a factoring company. What a factoring company does is they typically pay that trucking company within 24 hours, but they charge a percent. So they might charge 3%, they might charge 5%. So out of the money that they pay the trucking company, they take their percentage out. This way, the trucking company can get paid for dropping out that load within 24 hours. It's just not transportation that uses factoring companies, healthcare, manufacturing, staffing, construction, produce companies. Many different companies use factoring companies so they can get paid quicker from their customers. Here's a list of factoring companies. TAF's the first one. That's the factoring company I use, but there's many different factoring companies. I never had any problems with TAF's. So there's another idea. If when you acquire clients, if they're just starting their business, you might be, a lot of people actually don't know what factoring companies is. They might already have a truck and trailer, but they know nothing about factoring companies. They don't know anything about how they're going to get paid. So that's why I say you need to set your dispatching service aside from other dispatching services and know about factoring companies. I never had a problem with TAFs. So maybe you're able to tell your clients like, oh yeah, I have a couple other clients that use TAFs and they never had any problems. So you might want to go with TAFs when you're explaining what a factoring company is to them. Who knows? Maybe you can call TAFs and say, hey, I'm a dispatching company. Is it can we work out a deal where maybe you can pay me $100 for each person I get to sign up with you guys? So things like that. There's plenty of opportunities and different ways to make money within this industry. So definitely I would do more than only dispatch trucks. It's so much money. Any ideas you can think you can execute on to make more money. This is a screenshot of my factoring company. So before you book loads with the broker, while you're on the phone with them, you need to verify that the factoring company would factor that broker, because sometimes the factoring company won't factor a broker. So that means the driver could pick up a load, drop off a load for a broker, and the factoring company won't pay the trucking company. So you as a dispatcher, you have to make sure that broker is factorable with the factoring company. And the reason why, some brokers take a long time before they pay back factoring companies, or they never pay them back, period. So the broker won't allow that trucking company to factor any more loads from that broker. If the trucking company still wants to pick up the load and wait on the broker to pay them, so be it, that's fine. But if that trucking company wants to use their factoring company and get paid within 24 hours, they have to be factorable. So like I said, I use TAVs, and when a broker is factorable, as you see here, it comes up in green and it says approved for purchases. If the broker is not factorable, it comes up in red and say not approved for purchases. Every factoring company is different. How you have to check their credit, all the websites are different. So it just depends on what factoring company that specific trucking company is using. So just like the ELD, the easiest way, most convenient way would be for you to get the login information of the factoring company from the client you're working with. So you can just go log into that website, put in the broker's MC number, and verify they're factorable. Some trucking companies that I dispatched for, I didn't have access to their factoring company profile. So maybe if I wanted to book a load with a certain broker, I would text the broker to the truck driver, and they would check and make sure that broker is factorable. Yeah, that takes a while longer, and you're really not going to be able to wait that long before you take the load, because if it's a good load, it's going to be gone. So basically, the main thing you need to do is to get access to their factoring company. Me, for example, using TAVs, if I'm dispatching for someone who uses TAVs, I don't need their login information. I have my own, and I can go on my account and check. It's not going to hurt anything. You're just doing a check. It's not going to do anything. So same thing. Say another factoring company is OTR. Say you get one person that you're dispatching for, they use OTR. A week later or a couple of days, whenever, you get another person who uses OTR. You really don't need their login information, because you can use the login information of the first person, go onto their account, and verify that broker's factorable. So as long as you have the login information for one account, you're good. You can check for other loads using that account. It won't be a problem. Okay, question. Why do you need to run a broker's credit before securing a load? Should see that popping up now for you guys to answer. That is correct. Everyone answered correct. To make sure the factoring company will factor the load. That's a big one. Like I said, when you're on the phone, most of the time, if I'm on the phone with a broker and I never hauled a load for them before, I'm checking while I'm on the phone. That's why you want to have your hands free to be able to do things like that. But if it's a big broker like Landstar, we hauled plenty of loads for them before. I know they're factorable. I don't check again with Landstar, but it could change. Maybe one day Landstar could not be factorable. So I would say to keep it, to be 100% safe, I would check each and every time. I don't check each and every time, but I don't want to tell you guys something wrong. So I don't do it after I hauled a load with them one time, or maybe it's because I dispatched so many people before. I know what brokers will be factorable and which ones won't. But like I said, with a factoring company, say TAVs and OTR, a broker might be factorable with TAVs and might not be factorable with OTR. So that's the reason when you're dispatching people, you need to check with that factoring company. Okay, this is a question we talked about earlier. Just want to have a little review. What is a normally accepted deadhead? 800 miles, 1,000 miles, 300 miles, or 75 miles. Sometimes you might have to go over what's normally accepted if it's not any loads or they're in a really slow place. But what is an acceptable deadhead mileage? See, most people answer 75, and that's correct. 75 miles is acceptable. It's not far at all for a deadhead. Earlier when I was talking, remember on the load boards, we set the radius or the deadhead out 150 miles. And I was saying if you stay within 150 miles, that's not a problem at all. But of course, if you can find a good paying load that picks up 75 miles away, you want to book that load rather than a load picking up 140 miles away, because the longer that driver goes, the longer he or she deadheads, the more fuel they burn without making any money. But sometimes the amount that the load is paying, especially let's say it's an oversized load, driving at 200 miles might not be anything. It's paying a really good rate that makes sense. Sometimes what you can do, you can add the deadhead into the mileage. So maybe if the load is going 500 miles and your driver's 100 miles away, you can add that into there. So you can just say 600 miles and then try to negotiate with 600 miles in mind rather than 500 miles. So 300 miles is a little bit over the normally accepted deadhead mileage. Like I said, we want to keep it 150 miles or less. Sometimes if you're in a slow area, you might want to set that radius on your load board out to 200 miles. And that's just what you have to do, because like I said, us as dispatchers, we can't magically make loads appear. So I always remember that we just can't make loads appear. So maybe if your driver's in a slow area, nothing's within 200 miles, maybe they have to make that 300 mile deadhead. So a lot of things I'm saying is not set in stone. It just depends. So I'm not telling you that you can't book a load for 300 miles, because if that's what you have to do to get a driver out the area, that's what you have to do. But if you don't run them in those slow areas, you never have to deadhead 300 miles.